Morning all. I'd like to show you an opening trap in the Reti opening. The Reti opening is when white starts with knight f3, named after Richard Reti, one of the leading hypermodernists. You may know of Aaron Nimzowitsch, who is well known for My System, one of the classic works in chess literature. But Richard Reti was also a hypermodernist, and he influenced our understanding of central occupation and control. With knight f3, white is not establishing a pawn in the centre, but wants to exert influence later on the centre, and often this is accompanied by fianchettoing this bishop. And we see in this trap that black plays a natural move, knight f6, g3, wanting to fianchetto the bishop, and black is interested in trying to expose the downside of this fianchetto, to try and exchange off maybe this bishop for this bishop. So black's response is b6. If black can get rid of this bishop, often the light squares might be vulnerable. So we see bishop g2, and this bishop b7 now challenges this bishop on g2. White now castles. Black plays e6, logically developing this bishop, not wanting to waste time fianchettoing it. It takes a bit more time, but carrying on with development for a moment. Now d3, as though there's an interest in playing e4. And black is interested in discouraging e4. So black plays the seemingly logical move, d5. And it seems, the bishop, the knight and the pawn are all trying to discourage white from playing e4. So white now plays knight bd2, and black now, thinking that e4 is covered, just plays bishop e7. But here is where white plays now e4, and it looks as though on the surface this should be punishable with d takes e4, just trying to win a pawn. In fact, probably one of black's better moves is just to allow this e4, not trying to punish it, and maybe just to castle or c5. Now if black does take the pawn, white can take here, and now black should still just castle here, or maybe knight c6, and it's not going to be too bad. Now if black really wants to punish white, in principle black doesn't want to take with the bishop, but for sake of the argument here to show, if bishop takes e4, white can play knight takes e4, and there's no time for queen takes queen because the knight takes f6, check. So knight takes e4, and here white's most crushing move is not to exchange off queens, but actually to expose the knight and this rook with knight d4. So knight d4 is a very, very powerful move here, because if f5 to try and protect that knight, knight takes e6 is really good for white. This is a very big advantage, this position here. In fact, it's very uncomfortable. If knight a6, we can just win this pawn and then win this pawn. So black is forced to play something like king f7 to defend g7, losing yet another pawn. So that's a total disaster basically, with bishop takes e4, just to rule that out, for a way of winning that pawn. The most natural way of winning the pawn now will be explored, which is taking the pawn with the knight. Knight takes e4. The trap is set here. White has a really crushing move in this position. I wonder if you can guess it if I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, the move is knight e5. It's exposing the point that this bishop is quite vulnerable. It's a loose piece, so that pin is quite nasty. Let's have a look at some alternatives. I'll try and show you quite a few alternatives here for black. Let's run through them. f5. Now, I think the absolute strongest move, although queen h5 check is looking very impressive, maybe taking is even stronger here, and then queen h5 check. So this is a disaster, because we have knight takes g6. This is just winning material, like this. So that f5 is with big downside. The knight on e5 is covering these squares for this check, so that's really not on to play f5. Let's have a look at another idea. Okay, so if knight c5, it looks as though that's quite clever. Also, knight d6 would achieve the same point, that this knight can actually defend b7. But white can take on b7, knight takes b7, and in this position, can you see the crushing move? If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, queen f3, it's double attacking f7 and b7, so this knight again is playing a role on f7. And if knight d6, we can just take the rook quite safely, and the queen's not getting trapped. If f6, we could just take here, and again we're taking the rook, so that's like winning material. So after queen f3, that's just like winning a piece. So that's no good either. So knight d6, the same thing, that we just, white simply just takes, and then queen f3. So what else is there after knight e5? We're running out of ideas now. Bishop f6, we just play knight takes e4. This is a clever bit here now. We play knight takes e4. This is the move, which is a crushing move. And now, if bishop takes e5, can you see what white plays in this position? If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. The absolute best move is to play knight f6 check. So giving up the knight. Now here, it's best to take the queen off with queen takes d8. So king takes d8. Now bishop takes b7. So we're winning material like this. So this is very nice for white. Behold the power of knight e5. But one might ask also, well, hold on a sec, the knight on e5 isn't that loose itself? Cannot black try queen d4? Well, this resource is also not faring very well. Let's just make absolutely sure on this. Knight takes e4, so the queen is now hanging, so queen takes e5, no time to play bishop takes e4, and again the familiar resource which we've introduced is made use of in this position with the king still in the centre. The unfortunate knight f6 check is exposing this bishop to win this rook after. So if queen takes f6, bishop takes b7, and white is hugely up in material. It's taking this rook. Okay. For those interested, here is the game of Amit Ghazi against Mesros. So from the start, so knight f3, knight f6. As we've said, the exact sequence actually. So d3, d5, knight bd2, bishop e7, e4, and black did take, knight takes e4, and now this powerful knight e5. Black in the game played knight d6. So we see bishop takes b7, knight takes b7, and this key move queen f3. Black tried actually queen d5, very interesting try, but still not very good for black. Queen takes f7 check, king d8, so losing 2 pawns here straight off the bat. Rook f8, and now he kicks the queen with c4, the queen goes to a5, and this again gives white an opportunity to gain an important tempo. Knight b3, queen a4, knight d4, now threatening knight takes e6 check. Black tries to defend with knight c5, but now a very elegant reply is played in the game. Can you spot what white played in this position? If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, white played b4, and the cruel point is, well, if the knight moves we take on e6, but if the queen did take, black just resigned here, if the queen did take, white has, can you guess it? Any check really to fork the king and queen. So this is just winning the queen. Okay, so a crushing win from this Reti trap. Basically, it looks quite logical for black to try and suppress e4, but it doesn't seem to be possible because of knight e5. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.